7 months ago, Wang Xinyu looked across the net at Alex Eala in Auckland and called her an absolute fighter. Tomorrow in Rome, she has to fight that fighter again, except this time, the surface beneath their feet has stripped away the weapon that won Wang the first match. This is not a preview. This is a reckoning already in motion, and the physics of it favor the woman who lost. Let me explain why that Auckland semi-final, the one Wang won 5-7, 7-5, 6-4 over nearly 3 hours, actually revealed more about Eala's path to victory than Wang's. Because what happened inside that match tells you everything about what happens when these two collide on dirt instead of hard court. In January, on the fast courts of New Zealand, Eala went down 0-4 in the opening set. For games gone before she found her range. And then she did something that required either extraordinary courage or extraordinary stupidity. She won 7 of the next 8 games. She clawed back that first set 7-5. She had Wang rattled, off balance, questioning whether the Chinese player's flat ground strokes were penetrating or just landing short enough to get redirected. Then Eala's back seized up. She took a medical timeout in the third set, already down a break, already limping between points, and still won 3 consecutive games to make it 5-4 before Wang finally closed the door. Wang said it herself afterward. An absolute fighter. But here is what that compliment hides. Wang needed Eala's body to break down in order to close out a match she was losing on merit for most of the first 90 minutes. Strip away the injury and ask yourself what that scoreline looks like. That is not a hypothetical anymore. That is what Wednesday in Rome offers, the same matchup, minus the fast surface that inflated Wang's power, minus the injury that deflated Eala's resistance. Now let us talk about what clay does to Wang Xinyu's game, because the numbers are not just unflattering. They are devastating. Over her career at WTA level, Wang has won approximately 51% of her matches on all surfaces combined. On clay specifically, the number craters. In the last 52 weeks heading into this Rome draw, Wang's clay record sat at 2 wins against 5 losses, a 29% win rate. She entered Madrid as the 20th seed and won her first set against Laura Sampson 6-2. Dominated it. Looked like the Wang who can overpower anyone on a fast court. Then Sampson adjusted, and Wang lost the next 2 sets 6-3, 6-0. That is not a close loss. That is a structural implosion. The kind where the player does not run out of talent, but runs out of answers when the ball keeps coming back. And that pattern, win the first set, then collapse, is the exact fingerprint of a flat-hitting baseliner whose weapons lose velocity on clay. Wang stands 5'11". She hits through the ball with authority. On hard courts, her ground strokes skid low and arrive fast, compressing her opponent's reaction time. On clay, those same shots sit up. The surface absorbs pace and adds hang time. What was a winner on hard court becomes a mid-court ball on dirt, and suddenly the defender has time to set up, time to redirect, time to construct the point she wants instead of the point she is forced into. Wang's ace numbers tell the same story from a different angle. On hard courts this season, she averages close to 4 aces per match. On clay, that drops to 1.57. Her serve, which is her primary method of avoiding rallies she does not want, loses its free points on this surface. And when Wang cannot win cheap points behind her delivery, she has to engage in extended baseline exchanges. Which means she has to engage with Alex Eala's strongest skill set. Because here is what Eala has become on clay in 2026, and it is different from what she was 12 months ago. Last year at this same tournament, she lost in the first round to Marta Kostyuk without ever finding her footing. This year she opened with a 6-0 bagel against Magdalena Freck, a dedicated clay courter, someone whose career has been built on this surface. That first set was not competitive. Eala dictated from the baseline with depth and variety that simply overwhelmed a player ranked 45th in the world. The second set wobbled, yes. Freck adjusted her positioning, stepped inside the baseline on returns, and Eala's serve came under pressure. That is honest. That is the part of Eala's game that remains under construction. But in the third set, down 3-1, staring at another early exit on clay, Eala did what she did in Auckland. She refused to leave. She extended rallies. She forced errors. She broke Freck twice in 4 games and closed it out 6-4. That resilience is not incidental. It is the product of months spent at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, training directly under Tony Nadal's supervision. Eala has spoken publicly about what that experience meant for her clay court mentality. The physical adjustments, the deeper knee bend, the higher margin over the net, the willingness to add 3 or 4 shots to every rally, those are technical. But the mental shift is what matters most. The acceptance that clay rewards patience over brilliance, that suffering in a rally is not losing the point, but building toward winning it. That philosophy, Nadal's philosophy, is now embedded in Eala's approach. And against a player like Wang, who wants short rallies and quick resolution, that patience becomes a weapon. Let me walk through how the tactical architecture favors Eala in this specific matchup on this specific surface. Wang's game plan is simple and has always been simple. Hit big off both wings, keep rallies short, use the serve to set up first strike tennis. On hard courts, this works because the surface rewards pace. The ball does not decelerate. The geometry stays flat. But on Roman clay, the ball bounces higher and slower. Eala, at 5'9", is built for that bounce height. She can take the ball at comfortable hip height and redirect with angles that Wang's flatter stroke production cannot replicate. Where Wang hits through the court, Eala hits around it. Return of serve becomes the critical battleground. In Auckland, on hard courts, Wang's serve was a genuine weapon. The pace coming off that surface gave Eala minimal time to set up her return position. In Rome, the clay slows the serve fractionally. Not enough to make it easy, but enough to let Eala's exceptional return instincts, her ability to read the ball toss, to step inside the baseline early, to redirect pace rather than generate it, function at full capacity. And Wang knows this. She knows that when her serve stops generating aces, she has to hold through rallies. And holding through rallies against Eala on clay is the one thing Wang has consistently failed to do against comparable opponents this season. Consider the Rouen tournament in April. Wang entered as a qualifier and showed fight, beating Chloe Paquette 3-6, 6-4, 6-3 from a set down. But that match against a French player ranked outside the top 100 required a comeback. And her next match, against Sorana Cîrstea, someone who was essentially retired and came back, Wang went up in the early stages and then could not sustain it. The match ended with Wang winning on a retirement, but the pattern was already visible. She was laboring. The clay was extracting a price her body and her game plan could not indefinitely pay. Now layer in the psychological dimension of this Rome rematch. Eala knows she had Wang beaten in Auckland. She knows the first set was hers on merit. She knows the second set turned not because Wang elevated, but because Eala's body failed. There is a particular clarity that comes from losing a match you should have won, not the bitterness of an upset, but the calm certainty that you have already solved the puzzle once and simply need to solve it again without the interference of injury. That is a very different headspace than the one Wang carries into this match. Wang carries the memory of surviving, of needing her opponent's physical breakdown to advance. That is not confidence. That is relief. And relief does not hold up under pressure the way earned conviction does. The other factor working in Eala's favor is Rome itself. The Foro Italico plays slightly slower than Madrid's clay because of the lower altitude. In Madrid, the thinner air allowed the ball to travel faster, which partially preserved Wang's power advantage, and even there, Wang lost in straight sets after the first. Rome's heavier air compounds the effect. Every flat ground stroke from Wang will carry slightly less penetration. Every rally will last slightly longer. Every point will demand slightly more footwork, more construction, more patience. These are marginal differences individually, but they accumulate over a two-hour match into a systemic advantage for the more versatile player. I want to address the counterargument honestly, because it exists and it is not trivial. Wang is still ranked 9 places above Eala. She is seeded 31st in this draw. She is taller, she serves bigger, and she has won their only previous encounter. Those facts matter. If Wang finds her first serve rhythm early and keeps her unforced error count low through the first 4 or 5 games, she can absolutely establish the kind of lead that Eala has historically struggled to erase on clay. Eala's losses to Fernandez in Stuttgart 6-1, 6-4, and Mertens in Madrid 6-2, 6-1, both followed the same pattern. When Eala falls behind early against a player with confidence, the deficit compounds. She is not yet the kind of clay court player who can simply switch into a higher gear when trailing by a set and a break against an elite opponent who is serving well. But Wang is not serving well on clay. And Wang is not playing with confidence after the Madrid collapse. And Wang has just returned from what appears to be a minor injury that kept her out of competition between Rouen and Madrid. These are not abstract concerns. They are measurable fragilities entering a match against the most dangerous kind of opponent, someone with nothing to lose and everything to prove. There is also the matter of what sits beyond this match for Eala. If she wins, Elena Rybakina likely awaits in the third round. The Australian Open champion, a player Eala has never faced. The narrative significance of that potential matchup, two of Asian tennis's most prominent figures meeting at a premier event, creates a gravitational pull that could work for or against Eala. The danger is looking ahead. The advantage is motivation. Eala has never been this close to a marquee matchup at a WTA 1000, and that proximity can sharpen focus in a way that abstract goals cannot. What I expect to see on Wednesday is a match that begins tighter than Auckland. Wang will not race to a 4-0 lead this time because the surface will not allow her first strike tennis to function as cleanly. The rallies will be longer from the first game. Eala will settle faster because she has already proven to herself, 48 hours earlier against Freck, that she can compete on this surface at this level. The question becomes whether Wang can sustain a high enough first serve percentage to shorten rallies and prevent Eala from establishing the rhythm that dismantled Freck in that opening set. My honest assessment, and I want to be precise about what honest means here, is that Eala wins this match in 3 sets. Not because she is the better player overall. She is not. Wang's ceiling on a fast surface is higher than anything Eala has yet demonstrated. But this match is not being played on a fast surface. It is being played on the slowest clay of the spring calendar, in conditions that systematically dismantle Wang's primary weapons while amplifying Eala's secondary ones. Wang's clay record is not a fluke. It is a structural mismatch between her game style and the demands of the surface, and no amount of talent overcomes physics when the physics work against you for 3 consecutive sets. Eala winning this match would not shock the world in the way that phrase usually implies. It would not be an inexplicable upset. It would be the logical outcome of placing a patient, adaptable, improving clay court competitor against a flat-hitting power player whose record on this surface is objectively poor and deteriorating. The surprise would be if Wang found a way to win, if she somehow invented a version of her game that has never existed on clay, in a week where she is coming off a collapse in Madrid and carrying whatever residual effect her April injury left behind. That would be the shock. Eala winning is simply the more probable outcome that the ranking does not yet reflect. And if it happens, remember what Wang said in January. An absolute fighter. She was describing the version of Eala that lost. Imagine what the version that wins looks like.